Today's pod is once you go Cossack, you never go back. A truism across the across the Russian steppes and in parts of Ukraine. The legacy of the Cossacks. We're talking about Hungary today. We're talking about the upcoming election and anti-democratic behavior and fun things like that. But the Cossacks are sort of almost mythical people. They are they populated southern Russia and eastern Ukraine, but of course Vladimir Putin is Mister Doctor Evil of stolen glory. Everything that has to do with the former Soviet Union, USSR, and the like, he wants to make it great again in a MAGA Russian MAGA joint. So he wants to say that the Cossacks were Russian entirely, but that, of course, isn't true. But the truth of any statement regarding historical norms, figures, beliefs, or otherwise, as we're learning to our peril in the United States, as Ron DeSantis and others continue to burn books and try to rewrite history and say that whole slavery thing, just you misunderstood. That wasn't really about enslaving humans. It was about more about tourism, than indentured servitude and the like. So yeah, those are the kind of people that we're dealing with right now. But the Godfather, the capo, the boss, Vladimir Putin, is a man that has influenced many an election in his life. Putin himself came to power, right when it was about to be, right when we were partying like it was 1999. That was sort of that ascension, new millennium time when he was making the transition between being the prime minister and then the president and then the prime minister again, with Medvedev as his beard of sorts. And then he didn't give a fuck anymore, so it was just all Putin all the time. And Hungary it's a wonderful lesson for us because we're going to be able to see some things live that we will see again in the midterm elections. The elections parliamentary system in Hungary are on the 12th of April, so we're here. It's now, and the campaign system there is not as it's not as a long a campaign period. They don't run as long, and of course it's much more interesting in Hungary now because the GRU, which is the military intelligence, Vladimir Putin's own, and they're, like we talked about before when we spent a little bit more time with the FSB and the GRU in an earlier podcast. The GRU are the real bad guys. They are the pipe swinging baseball bat type intelligence officers that will get, they will employ guile and trick you into doing a bunch of stuff, but they'll also beat the ever living piss out of you, or worse, the former head of the Wagner group. What happened? Oh, your plane went down? Oh, well, we'll send a team right out to make sure you're okay. Not so much. These are verifiable bad guys, and we, I mean the royal we, I often make light of Vladimir Putin's exploits because I'm amazed that he does so much of what he does in plain sight. And with leaving it used to be you wanted to build in some plausible deniability, but not our boy Voda, because he marched right into New York City and had his operatives. He had some of the home team gringos like Stone and Manafort in on the joke in the middle part of the 2000s when Vladimir Putin was helping Donald Trump to win his first election, and doing that, as we've discussed before, by raising up Vladimir and by whacking the shit out of Hillary, and it worked out great. Didn't work out as well in 2020, and it worked well again in 24. Not for us, for him, right? And so, what we're going to witness now that we're paying attention is the Hungarian election with Viktor Orban waving to the crowd and driving the ship. And but for the first time ever, essentially, he has an actual opposition candidate. Again, it's parliamentary election, so your team wins, the man doesn't win, but there's only one man at the head of Victor's team, and Mr. Magyar, the name I always have, Magyar, which we talked about before, is also the proper name for an ethnic group of Hungarians that lived between, not surprisingly, Hungary and into the Czech Republic, and may still do. It's going to be, depending on the polls, and as always, polls are unreliable, and with Vladimir Putin shooting live rounds from the sidelines, polls are even less reliable. But some polls in the last month have had the opposition party up by 17, 18, 19%, which is not nothing. So it's going to be interesting. There was a couple of the underlying factors that are motivating the electorate, leaving corruption and Russian state security aside for a minute. There was a pardon scandal that actually caused the opposition candidate to leave Orban's party and oppose him. And the corruption scandal was about Epstein is everywhere in our life. This was not Jeffrey Epstein, but it had the same sort of saucy sexual child endangerment undertones to it. And so the opposition, Mr. Magyar, said, "Nope, I'm out, starting my own party, doing my thing," and he's done marvelously well. And if we are graced by good luck on the date of the election, on the 12th of April, he will win, and we can retire Viktor Orban. That will have Putin has lots of tools in the tool chest, but Viktor Orban is extraordinarily useful to Vladimir Putin because, as you know, Hungary is also a member of NATO and the EU. And so he has his tame stooge. Stooge is the wrong. Viktor Orban is an intelligence political animal, evidenced by the fact that he's still alive and succeeding in Hungary. With a partner in crime like Vladimir Putin, you don't always end up standing. If you are, Orban did the intelligent thing for self-preservation, which is he says, "Yes, sir, Mr. Putin, sir," and kind of behaves like Trump's cabinet behaves when DJT's in the room and they bootlick. And Orban is a verified. He is the verified Putin bootlicker. Even Trump doesn't lick Putin's boots, except if they're in Alaska together, because that would not reflect well in media if the MAGA base became convinced of the truth that their candidate, there's the agency thing with MAGA. If you think about the Epstein files, like, oh my God, there are Democratic Party people that are molesting. No, it turns out that everybody's doing it, and mostly it's Donald Trump and the Republican Party. So MAGA's like, shoot, I thought we had him. I thought that was all. QAnon flies in on a meteor like happened the other day. However, QAnon travels, with the cost of jet fuel. Maybe QAnon is flying coach instead of first class these days, but they still get around even after MTG's departure. They still QAnon is still doing their sort of mystical thing. Whatever QAnon is doing, they're still doing it, right? And there's kind of a flashing light in the background of the tragic Trump MAGA experience. That their MAGA base is looking at that sort of mystical light that isn't quite, it's not religiosity, it's more spiritual or alien in nature, but it's still a force. It's something that people believe in, that there are these divine or other demigods out there that make strange things happen in the universe. And one of those strange things were the aliens that maybe caused or aided and abetted with the sex trafficking of minor girls. But it seems that QAnon at that point was probably just hanging out with Elon Musk and doing Elon things, which could be very similar, as the files indicate. So, what are we going to expect from Victor? We had I said the two kind of the background vocals to the election are that pardon controversy. So this bad guy was pardoned, and that created a scandal. So that's kind of running in the background, but it was over a year ago. So is the electorate still going to be energized? You can ask that about Epstein too. Is the electorate still going to be energized by a controversy that is aging, because people's attention spans are diminishing, not increasing? And that's just going to happen for the rest of our lives because of AI and the speed of data and information. That's just the world. So suck it up, enjoy it, and try to profit from it somehow. And then the other part, of course, is the Ukraine-Russia war. In a interesting dynamic, though, the Hungarian electorate appears to sort of be split on the Ukrainian-Russian war, but unified by decreasing interest in more from a national treasury point of view. They don't want to send any more money, any more NATO money, any more EU money to Ukraine, not because they hate Ukrainian people or they hate Russian people. They just don't have the money, they believe. The other interesting wild card that is also running in the background in Hungarian politics going way back is George Soros. George Soros is a Hungarian Jewish gentleman who, if you haven't been, or if you're just stopping by the planet, you came at the wrong time. George Soros is a major progressive value fundraiser, as opposed to the lunatics that financed your current president's campaign. The obsequious, silly ass, big shoe wearing folks and tech bros. George Soros is the other guy. He's it's the Hollywood money, and Soros are the big funders of democratic causes. and Soros, excuse me, has shit tons of money. He is also George's. I always think of him sort of in the generation of like Warren Buffett. So he's not a young man. He's still kicking, or he was. I didn't talk to him this morning, but I understand that he's still doing his thing. But he just happens to be a Hungarian gentleman. He was helping to stand up a university in Hungary that Orban cracked down on and actually essentially caused to dissolve. The parallels that we'll be looking for, these are things that are happening now in Trump 2.0, because what learning from the master. Trump and Orban learned everything they knew about politicking, influencing polls, and fascist shit from the master, from Vladimir Putin. So what has happened over time in when Orban came to power? He grew up under the Soviet system, because Hungary, while it was an independent country, but it was in under the greater Soviet influence. So he came into politics kind of as an anti-Soviet power player. He was very influential, and this is going back to 1990, somewhere in that range. So he was, he had seen the fall of the Berlin Wall. He had seen conditions not improve. He had seen the legacy of Soviet influence remain in his country, in Hungary, and he wanted it in technical terms, he wanted to get it the fuck out. So he was a very influential politician, anti-Soviet politician in the 90s. But what happened as we got to, as we said, a party like 1999, at that time, when Putin came to power, Orban, his power certainly increased in the new millennium. And around 10 years in, 2010, Putin had 10 years of experience of killing people and influencing others, and he brought Orban along. Hungary had been a member of NATO and the EU for 7 to 10 years at that point, and so Putin, a great talent acquisition specialist, realized that he could really benefit from this relationship, to have his inside guy in NATO tell him the information, of course, but to vote against things that Putin didn't like, to block initiatives, to block funding for things that were contrary to Putin's liking. And that's what the role, starting in about 2010, Orban was fully on board. He was a fully indoctrinated, essentially an asset of Russian state security too. Donald Trump wouldn't join that team for about another 5 years still, right? So it took a little doing, but Putin always gets his man, right? Cossack or otherwise. And Orban proved extraordinarily useful. And through that whole time, from what distinguishes Orban from Putin 1.0, or Putin, when he took over in Russia, after a couple of years in consolidating the power of the oligarchs to favor his positions, Putin is not a subtle guy. He's a KGB guy. He knows how to be subtle, but he breaks arms and cracks heads. Orban, just because of the nature of Hungarian society and the way that it was, he took a softer touch. So when it came to the media, he would get his friends, and this will have alarming echoes of David Ellison and the Warner deal and CBS and Barry Weiss, and the whole what's playing out now. Pastor Pete Hegseth talking in a public forum, a a Pentagon press briefing about how nice it will be to have his friend David Ellison buying CNN so he wouldn't have to listen to CNN anymore. I mean, that's real fascist bullshit that's going on at the Pentagon. We did that episode a couple days ago about Pete Hegseth and the influence of the pastors in his life and the white Christian nationalist, hyper evangelical, anti, very misogynistic. We did that whole thing, and you learn more about that crew, and it's more disturbing as you read on. But so Orban would bring in his oligarchs, and one by one, not all at once, not a major CBS, TikTok, oh, Time Warner, everything, consolidate everything within the first effing year almost of the Trump administration. But over the years, he would get an oligarch in, said, I want you to buy those two stations. If they give you any shit, give me a call. If they did, then he would send a message to them, or Vladimir Putin would help send a message that no, you're selling the station. We're going to give you something for it, but there isn't any negotiation. You're going to do it, and you're going to do it very shortly. Nice looking kids you have, by the way. So that's Putin, right? Duress, a little pat you on the arm, or break it, pull it off, and eat it in front of you. That's our boy Vladimir Putin. So, excuse me. So over decades, Orban would do this, and there were, it's a smaller country than the United States, and there were a lot more independent stations, and there were public stations, and he turned the entire media ecosystem into a Viktor Orban friendly media. He didn't rush. He took his time, but it is that now. The public stations, however, a couple dozen of them, are all, state media, regime media, all the time. It's kind of Fox News on every channel all the time, which is like you know not an Orwellian fever dream. It's kind of what's knocking on our door right now if we're not more vigilant and very careful. But he succeeded because Putin spelled it out for him, and they took the temperature of is not every system works perfectly for every situation. What are the bulwarks, if you will, against the encroachment of fascism into a system, into the institutions? He did a very similar thing with universities. Now we have the Harvards and some other of the institutions are standing up and saying, no, we're not signing any pledge. They throw them a little, some of them just threw a little bone saying, yeah, we'll take your input on, and we'll talk a little bit about hiring, and the government can get the statistics about the number of, obviously, visas that are issued to students. Are there professors that are recent emigres from other countries? The government has that data, and we know that with the help of Palantir, they have been weaponizing that data aggressively, and to an extent that we don't even know, but should be very alarmed about, because as we've talked about with the Anthropic in the military context on Claude .gov, it's the best system. Will they eventually work out a settlement arrangement so they can continue to have the business, the tremendous business that is the U.S. government? And as we talked about yesterday, that is actually harming soldiers, harming American soldiers by saying Pastor Pete and DJT saying Anthropic out of the government. That is absolutely going to cost American lives, because you will be using, harder to measure, but you're using substandard tools to achieve a mission where the best tool that has already proved itself to be the best tool is no longer in your tool chest. Why? Because you're a petulant fuck, because you're a baby, because you have grievances. That's the only reason. Because you said no to the president. Oh, yeah, too bad for you. So that, think about the institutions. It's happening here at home. It's going to happen at an accelerated rate going towards our elections. But we're going to be able to, keep, I'm asking you to keep an eye on Hungary, and you'll learn something. It's a, Budapest, it's a beautiful country. It's, there was an expression that they used to use. I may mangle this a little bit, but goulash, Hungarian goulash, is a famous dish, and did they call it goulash fascism? Like a lighter version or was it goulash communism? Some of that ilk, right? Something to personalize it, to sort of put a Hungarian brand on a despicable, oppressive regime. That was something. It was a while back, so that's why my brain is not clicking to it readily. But so yeah, so they got the universities, they've got the press, they have the election system, they have it set up, and he reworked the electoral system to favor his party. Any familiar echoes? Anything you've heard recently in the United States? Yeah, because they're reading from the same playbook. This is, I speak endlessly about Project 2025, and it's a real thing. And elements of Vladimir Putin's playbook, not word for word, but the theme and the character of it made their way into Project 2025, because you're destroying institutions, thereby reducing accountability and reducing visibility. So that's just it's fascism 101, right? It's authoritarian 101, but there's that very special Vladimir Putin KGB twist on it, because nobody does it better, right? Nobody does it better. He is non-Periel. He is first among equals in that respect. So here we're coming up on the election. He has everything. He has his electoral system the way he wants it. He has his media the way he wants it. He has the other institutions the way he needs them. He has the universities compliant, and so much more in his universities. DEI out in his universities. Also DEI, of course, but specifically women's study programs eliminated largely from Hungarian universities. Same playbook. It's male dominated white Christian. And the white Christian, the tie into the title, though, once you go Cossack, you never go back. It kind of ties into MAGA in a way too, because the Cossacks are their version, old school, of Christian nationalists. They were marauders. They were the supreme fighters. They were the guys you wanted on the wall or on the gate. because they were fearless, great fighters. They were Christian in the way that the Christian Orthodox in the Russian and what was the Ukrainian style before, right? So they were, reliably the religious indoctrination came as part of the program, much as what we're seeing right now with using Nazi and white Christian nationalist branding on the talent acquisition program at the various government agencies, the the Trump administration. They want to hire those people for the FBI. They want to hire them everywhere they can because they think they have a reliable group. And as we talked about yesterday or the day before with Pastor Pete, was that the elimination of the women in leadership roles. The 4 general officers that were women in the Pentagon, they're gone. A number of the black and brown generals, gone. Goodbye. And for no other reason that they had the nerve of being born with healthier skin tone than I have. Yeah. So it's despicable. It's on repeat, and you can see the mirror image of this under Putin in Europe, and it will be, after the Hungarian elections, we have more state elections in Germany throughout the year. They don't do all of their state elections because they're independent states, but they don't sort of harmonize the primary system, like we do here. So there will be more state elections, which we'll be watching, Saxony, which we talked about, where Dresden is, where Putin lived in Germany when he was a KGB officer. That may be the first state to vote in a majority vote for the AfD, for the far right Christian Nationalist Party, which we sometimes say sub-Nazi because of how they behave. Unless you're offended by that, then you can call them what you like. But whatever you care to, however you care to label them, between the rally in France and some other parties, watch it, because it's a look into our future. Right now, if the opposition candidate, sort of like Joe Biden did, upsets the Vladimir Putin campaign machine and wins, we'll celebrate. But we're not going to say, oh, we got nothing to worry about, because we got a shit ton to worry about here in the United States. They're going to interfere with the elections. The SAVE Act is running in the background, and all of the other things that they're going to do with people, whether at that point, whether these ladies and gentlemen from ICE and Border Patrol are wearing masks or not at that point, are wearing proper identification or not at that point, if the Democrats hold out in Congress and force a change. I just hope they don't take one concession and call it a win. I hope that they, take him to the mat right now, today, the next day. It may have happened while I've been running my mouth, but stand firm. And, we are, as Democrats, as a Democratic Party, we are ready to fund TSA and FEMA today. We'll do that. Are we concerned about terrorism? We are, just as you are. The increased cost of terrorism caused by Trump's war, Trump and Bibi's war, terrorism threats increasing. So we want a better FBI director, but we may not fix that today. We want to fund all of those things. But for right now, this is called a negotiation. Don't be a dick. This is we'll give you the TSA immediately, fully funded, right? FEMA, which Trump has taken an axe to, decimated it, staffing wise. Decimated 15-20%. But all of them, each of the agencies, they have eliminated key components of each agency and have stripped out, well, obviously, the DEI part. We know what that is, and that's something we'll have to look at a future date. That isn't the first thing that's going to get built back, but it is an important component of any organization, workplace, governmental agency, or otherwise. So that will be addressed, but it won't be, we're going to be doing life safety issues first. We're going to be doing, terrorism and saving children that are being washed out in Texas by a river because FEMA wasn't on duty and they fired everybody that do the NOAA, the weather predictions and things. So we have more extreme weather, but we have less people that are trained to predict it. AI, yeah, I understand. I've heard about AI. One of the few things I can spell without a cheat sheet. We still need the expertise because when you make the transition to more autonomous systems, more LLMs, more of all of those things, we still need the steady or unsteady hand of the experienced human. Because even though experience can be kind of taught to a machine with repetitions and some science things that I'm not qualified to comment on, but we still need that steady human hand. And Trump has Elon Musk, Doge, the Doge bags, giving testimony that they have been, they broke things for the thrill of breaking them, not for any legitimate purpose. And as the Doge bags stipulated in these depositions, the savings weren't there. They all looked like all of the ones that were in the depositions, and depositions aren't fun. I've done a few, been in a few, been on both sides of a few. But the Doge bags themselves, they all looked like they weren't parented well or haven't had a really good beating in decades, because they look like they could have benefited from more parenting and less time with idiots like Elon Musk. That's just me looking from the outside. So Hungary, a beautiful country, beautiful people, great food. Under the thumb of Vladimir Putin currently, because Viktor Orban is also under Vladimir Putin's thumb. And the only way for them to get out of it is to win the parliamentary elections. And Mr. Magyar, the opposition candidate, who, if his party wins, will be the leader of the country. I have respect and fear. I both respect and fear the GRU's skills. What they're doing is the same thing they did when they had offices in Trump Tower in 2015 into 2016. They're doing, think about, social media manipulation campaigns. How much have we learned in the last decade? A lot. We didn't, AI was a thing, but it wasn't the thing that it is today, the sophistication of that, in the Palantirs of the world, and those the strength and complexity of the perplexity, all of that stuff. So it's a different ballgame. But for the GRU to be tasked, not see what you can do, but you guys, my team, Putin speaking, I want you in Budapest. We're not dialing in. We're not working from home on this. We're going to get there because we may need to crack some heads too. So get yourself set up, get your Motel 6, get situated, get your high speed data going, all of the things, and then have your hit them all the ways that I taught you to, as Putin says. Create dissension, cause riots, print flyers, drop flyers from airplanes, drop flyers from drones, make drones crash into buildings. If they happen to be voting centers, that's so much the better, right? Make them think that it's, and write Ukraine on a bunch of drones and make them fly in and crash. This is what Vladimir Putin does as a hobby. He would do this for free. He is, of course, one of the 2 richest men in the entire universe. So he doesn't do anything for free, but he would, because it's a game to him. It's a game that he wins and other people lose. So he's all in and he enjoys it. So, yeah. So what else about Hungary? Do we have? Let's see. We talk great food. Used to be great universities until Orban kneecapped them. Used to be lots of news outlets and newspapers until Orban kneecapped those or absorbed them. Travel plans, dinner recommendations in Budapest. I haven't been there for a little bit. Yeah, that would be outdated. There's a Google machine that will probably help you with more than my memories from 20 years ago. Yes. So we'll leave it there. Hungry? Are you hungry? Do you love Hungary? Do you love Hungarian women? Do you love Hungarian men? Or Hungarian, any other gender you would like? Do you like Hungarian music? Do you like? I'm just running my mouth, so I will stop. Appreciate you. A great day, and we will pick up tomorrow with some other exciting thing that Donald Trump is doing right now. When I woke up this morning late at 4 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time, then Brent crude spot price was 116. High for the year, about $10 more than that. High all time? I think it tickled 150. Whether that was during Putin's first invasion, Putin's invasion of Ukraine. Not talking about the one in 2000 in this decade, when that was coupled with Putin plus COVID equals high oil prices and uncertainty. I'm just trying to think if that happened before, if we go back to the energy crises in the 70s in the United States, then the price per barrel would not have reached that, because inflation adjusted value of a barrel of oil would not have reached that. Bottom line, cut to the chase, 115, 117, went back to, saw 107 about an hour ago. It could be 150. And remember that a number of months ago, the price per barrel of Brent, we're just using that because apples to apples, was 60, right? So you're doubling the cost of a barrel of oil. It doesn't affect every product equally, obviously. But we talked about the number of products that use petroleum distillates, that use byproducts of LNG extraction for fertilizers and things like that. That the petroleum distillates or parts of the petroleum complex go into making plastics. They make nobody buys albums anymore, but there's a lot. If you look at an album and it's black, does that mean like I'm a freaking scientist? Does that mean no? But there are petroleum products in the making of an old school LP. Yeah, so it's in everything. It's in everything, and what happens in the Strait of Hormuz matters a lot. Obviously, Iran has escalated and went back and hit some of the oil infrastructure in Dubai to retaliate. So it's way beyond chippy over there. And how long? Because of the mercurial nature of Donald J. Trump, and he just wakes up tomorrow and he said, "No, I saw a poll and I'm going to end it." So he calls Bibi and says, "Bibi, I'm going to end this." And he says, "Donald, please no. I need to kill more Lebanese people, please. Allow me to, please, Donald. I need to, I need to kill more Hezbollah." But of course, there is a disgusting amount of collateral damage, as there was with Hamas and Gaza. The collateral damage in Lebanon, which is the birthplace, if you'll excuse me, of Hezbollah, but also of millions and millions of beautiful Lebanese people, some of which live in my general neighborhood. Not the same people, but their families. We have here in Massachusetts, we've had Lebanese communities that I've been familiar with for as long as I've been here. Wonderful people. Beirut, one of the greatest cities in the world back then. Beirut in the 80s, if you think about, this is, and I always say I'm going to stop and then I don't. So I'm going to take a drink of water. Talk about Beirut for a minute and then say Beirut's connection to Hungary. Make one up because I have no idea. I'm just riffing on this, but I've admitted that I've always been a huge fan of spy novels. Whether they are actual accounts by people that worked for the CIA, MI6, KGB, or otherwise, or fictionalized accounts. And I have shared my opinion that John le Carré is not only in genre fiction, but in fiction in general. John le Carré is one of the greatest technicians of the fiction novel to ever have lived on the planet. Fight me. So that's John le Carré. That's Tinker, Tailor, Soldier, Spy. The not the Smiley trilogy. It's the Carla trilogy, which is Tinker, Tailor, Soldier, Spy, The Honorable Schoolboy, and Smiley's People. The one in the middle, not the strongest of all books. Good, different, fine, good. But the language in the first and the third, everybody loves well, the consensus is that Tinker Tailor. There was a movie, movies. Yeah, what was the book I was touting earlier in the feed? Um, that I'd never seen the movie, but I was talking about the book. Yeah, I'll figure that out eventually. Beirut, Lebanon. In the 80s and before then, but at the time that I was in my understanding of the world and the complexities of Middle East politics and geopolitics and real politics and the Soviet influence, Beirut was the center of the universe. If you were a spy or an arms dealer or an international journalist, Beirut played a meaningful part in your life. And it was a city that there was danger. There was terrorism at play. In the 80s, there was the killing of the Marines in the bombing of the Marine barracks with a truck bomb, truck bomb in the 80s. I don't remember the year right now, but killed a lot of Marines. Killed a lot of Marines. And then through this period, Ronald Reagan, Ollie North, Fawn Hall, Arms for Hostages, funneling money to fight the Sandinistas in Nicaragua. Daniel Ortega, who may still be alive, remarkably. The great fear in the United States that the Soviet Union and the KGB and communism in general was infiltrating America, central and southern, and obviously, Nikita Khrushchev playing fast and loose with the Castros in Cuba, and that's something, whatever's old is new again. And now Marco Rubio is negotiating with a descendant of Fidel's, trying to figure out how to not kill people and not burn another $1 billion a day to move naval ships that are beyond their time out for service, to go to dry dock and be refitted. All of these things, these are happening at the same time. And of course, as we talked about before, having the everything all at once, almost a show title, right? Everything all at once, um, is part of the purpose too, along with Epstein files, because it's to distract people from looking too hard at the Epstein files and at the corruption and the destruction of our government. So that's the play. That is the game that's going on. But if you were a spy or a journalist, or loved a spy or a journalist, or wanted to have sex with a spy or a journalist, then you would be in Beirut, Lebanon. That would be the place that you would do that. Right? So, in any case, I appreciate it. I'm wishing you all a beautiful day, and we'll be together sometime tomorrow. Okay. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.